small businesses. And we don't want to do anything that is going to damage our small businesses. In looking at this, we're learning so much. Mm-hmm. And the idea that the state is, it might be harder for us to get people to register with us because we're the city. But quite frankly, it's almost August 1st. And if they have to register with the state and the state has more enforcement action than we do, they're going to be required to register with the state. We'll get the information. We probably would not be able to gear up and actually get registration done before October 1st anyway. Yeah. I mean, I think that would just be unrealistic. We'd have to get a letter to send out to people, and how do we identify people? Do we send it to all businesses? I mean, I just think that the more that we learn about this may be something, even though I'm frustrated because we've had this moratorium. The legislature ended in May, and really, we waited for that to happen and to learn something more, and now we have something new that we have to figure out as well. So I guess, I'm looking at this. I'm not in favor of us licensing it because I just think that the time and the effort and hiring more staff only to lay them off is not a prudent thing to do. In terms of registration, trying to register all of these businesses, if the state is going to do it anyway and we get the information, that's something that we're going to, we probably wouldn't get it till October 1st anyway. So, I think, Mr. Beatty, that you're convincing me that the bigger issue really here is going to be cannabis. And, this has been going on. Let me ask Chief Beardeman, have we had any issues from a public safety perspective concerning edibles?
Yeah, so I figured that question would come up, so did a little looking into it. We've had zero issues. We're unaware of who's selling, if they're selling, and had no complaints on anybody selling or even people who took too much or anything like that. I'm unaware of any issues of last year.
Okay. Mr. Beatty, is the state going to be licensing the edible sellers or just registering them?
No,
licensing.
They'll license them in the end. The registration by October 1st is the preliminary step, but they will be licensing them in the end.
Then maybe, thank you for checking on that for us about, we haven't had any problem with edibles. That makes me feel a little more comfortable with the fact that this is not really something that maybe we need to focus on and create an awful lot of more work when the state is going to be taking this over anyway. I didn't see, Councilmember Juniman, were you next? And then Councilmember Lee. I think his light was not there. Were you on before?
Okay. Just a quick comment, so.
Okay, go ahead.
A question be perhaps, and I'm asking a lot of these questions this week. I've been spending a lot of time asking a lot of resources that I have, and the ultimate, what it comes down to is they're not going to be ready in the next 12 to 18 months. That's kind of what I've concluded. So that's where my concern comes from. There's still a lot of ambiguity that's out there. This next session, there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of work around some of the legislation. So that's kind of where my concern is. Where my next question is, do you have more understanding of now the state's going to be licensing a lot of these businesses? Are they going to also be doing the enforcement? Or does that fall upon the city to also do the enforcement with our tobacco and our alcohol checks and compliance and everything?
Well, it depends on what you mean by enforcement. Again, I don't think that we are now or will ever be in the business of sort of the technical enforcement in terms of potency and so forth. With regard to the newly approved cannabis products, the state will license them. We have the ability, not a requirement, to register them. That's a second step. Going back to what we talked about originally, the newly approved products, after they're licensed by the state, the city can register them. If we choose to do so, we have to come up with a compliance check system, which is going to involve age requirements and others, making sure that they're complying with the sales behind the counter and so on and so forth. We can opt out of doing that. That's one of the decisions that the city can make and let the county take that over. But if we choose not to engage in the compliance checks, then when the money is distributed, because there's a 10% tax, 20% of which will go split between the counties and cities based on how many licensed holders you have. If you choose not to register and not to do the compliance checks, you don't get any money. So we can, if we wish, play a role in registering and complying and doing that kind of compliance checks with regard to the newly approved products. I don't know what, if anything, we will be able to do with regard to the edibles.
Councilmember Juniman.
Well, I think we have to do something, but as you started several minutes ago about adopting some kind of a zoning or other ordinance, I do think we need to look into that. But I also think that I have the same concern as Councilmember Lee, and we have taken on the responsibility with tobacco and liquor, and so to do nothing after they're licensed by the state doesn't seem consistent to me. I mean, then I think we need to go to the step of registering, and that would mean some kind of compliance check, but pardon me for being jaded, but leaving anything to the state or the county after this is a joke. If we want to know what's going on, if we want to make sure it's done right, we do it ourselves. We have our own health officer because we don't want to leave it to the county. Why would we leave this kind of registration and enforcement to the county? I don't think so.
Thank you. You know, council members, we still have one topic that we need to discuss, and so we are running over into our council time, but this is important. This is very timely. And so let's see, is there a way that we can bring this together in terms of giving staff direction on what it is that we would like to do? So if you could just, we'll start with you, Councilmember Cave.
What I wanted to do and what I now want to say is, the problem is it's kind of like do nothing with the moratorium, because it's just where it's evolved to. And eventually, we're going to jump on board with the state with all the compliance and everything. But for this answer, it's the do nothing.
Okay. Councilmember Juniman.
I don't like doing nothing. I still think we should do for option 4.
I am going to, because of the information that Mr. Beatty has shared, that the state is going to be registering people by October 1st, that right now the information we have for the edibles is that the state is going to be licensing them in 12 to 18 months. I don't want to hire new staff and go through all of that only to lay people off, because the state is going to pick that up. And so while I walked in tonight thinking that I wanted to do zoning because I really felt compelled to do something, I think in looking at this information, I thank you, Mr. Beatty, for your presentation. It's been very clear and obviously brought a lot of questions up, but I guess at this point, I would prefer to do nothing. The chief has told us we haven't had a problem yet, and the state is going to be jumping in. And that's kind of where I'm falling out after this discussion. I don't feel real comfortable with it because I feel very compelled. We have, as council members, we have all been elected to make the hard decisions. And sometimes in looking at this, the state legislature did not do us a whole lot of favors. But that's where I'm falling on this at this point. So, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm interested in seeing what licensing looks like in other cities, what the compliance piece looks like, what other cities are doing in terms of licensing, how long it's taking for them to put a process in place. That's what I'm interested in seeing, to see how we can help manage this a little better. And I think this will be a good leadway into the whole cannabis issue that's going to be coming up, because we don't know how long that's still going to take. So if we have these businesses, because along with Councilmember Villasencio, my assumption was it was going to go into tobacco and liquor store. So if there's going to be special businesses that are going to be selling cannabis, could this be a leadway into preparing us for what that next venture is going to look like? Those cannabis business that will be coming into our city.
Okay, Councilmember Villavicencio. At this point, we have 1 for licensing, 2 for do nothing, and 1 for number 4, which is zoning. Is that correct, Councilmember Juniman?
Well, I prefer licensing, but I know better, so yes, zoning.
Okay, zoning, okay. So Councilmember Villavicencio.
One more comment, Mayor, if it's all right.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Councilmember. And perhaps staff capacity at the city level, what that looks like in terms of licensing. So maybe add that in there if they have the capability to do that.
This is something that we have to direct staff with tonight, so
Right.
that's where we are. Councilmember Villavicencio, what is your pleasure? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Well, yeah, I feel like everybody does. I think it's like, I don't want to, it's hard to answer one thing, right? I mean, I think I'm really interested in the compliance and the licensing, but I think in order to not negatively affect the businesses, like you've mentioned, Councilmember Lee, I think actually doing nothing is probably the best, because then it wouldn't, you know, it just seems like the licensing time frame isn't gonna work.
Okay.
So I guess my vote is for doing nothing at this point
Okay.
for that.
So council members, we have 3 that have indicated do nothing in terms of the edibles. Let's move on to number C, criminal penalties for use in public places. Mr. Beatty.
Well, despite the fact that the statute was 321 pages long, there is no criminal penalty for adult use. And so the statute authorizes local governments to deal with that by making use in a public place a petty misdemeanor. And the statute, so this is not possession, this is simply use. Statute doesn't tell us what a public place is, it tells us what a public place is not. And I indicated the 3 places that are not public places. So I think the issue in this case is focus on a public area that you might be concerned about. It'd have to be an outdoor area, because the Indoor Clean Air Act is going to take care of any smoking, whether it's tobacco or cannabis. Parks are the location, or other public property is the location that is most commonly talked about. So do you want to ban use by adults in public places?
Thank you very much, and I think you have spelled out here, public parks, sidewalks, streets, parking lots, et cetera. I know from the article that was in the Pioneer Press, the city of Duluth is considering a petty misdemeanor and a fine of $300 for a criminal penalty for using cannabis in public places. Now, we're only talking about cannabis for this. So, you know, if council members, according to what I'm reading and according to, you know, the other mayors that I have been speaking to, I think that it's kind of interesting that the legislature, this bill is so comprehensive, but they didn't consider this, and so it really falls on our shoulders. And I guess my inclination is to go with criminal penalties for use in public places. That would be my inclination. Councilmember Cave.
I'd like to add on there, I do think a penalty, monetary, but can I ask, can you collect it? And how you can write them a ticket, but how do you get the money?
I'll let the police chief
I mean,
answer
how
that
often do
question.
you get the money?
That, I mean, we don't deal with the money side of it. We write the citations,
Yeah.
and I don't know where it goes after that, as far as how the
Okay.
city, the back end of it, of how the city gets the money or not, is
Okay.
beyond my purview, but
Okay.
we write the tickets and it goes to the city in some way, but I'm not sure the back end of how we get paid for it.
Okay. I mean, I think putting a monetary fine also with it.
So,
What she said.
Councilmember Juniman, Councilmember Lee,
I'm also in favor of that, Mayor.
okay, and Councilmember Villavicencio,
No, I'm not in favor of that.
okay? Councilmember Cave, do you have another, okay.
So I think that the 2 things in this case is what type of public places do you want to restrict? Is it parks, or is it more than that? And do you wish to sort of combine this with any kind of regulations of tobacco? For example, I know in some cities, this has sort of prompted a discussion about well, maybe we should ban smoking of regular tobacco smoking in our parks. Do you want to go there, or do you want to just leave this with regard to cannabis?
You know, I'll just tell you, my impression is let's just leave this with cannabis.
Okay?
And what, I like these ideas, public parks, sidewalks, streets, parking lots, because buildings are obviously going to be covered by the Clean Indoor Air Act. But maybe you could make some recommendations based on, I know you folks represent an awful lot of other cities. Are there other public spaces that we're not thinking about?
Open spaces,
What?
open space?
Open spaces?
What about the school, what about schools?
It's banned in schools
Even in their,
anyway.
like they're outside after school?
I think so.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I've just read the schools. This is one luckily, we have more time on this. Use is going to become effective or legal as of August 1st. But there's no and we're not going to have an ordinance in place
Right.
by August 1st. But that doesn't really matter in this context because there's no non-conforming use aspect to this. In other words, starting August 1st, you're going to be able to use in the public parks. And if a month later we put an ordinance in place that bans it, you won't be able to smoke in the public parks anymore. And you can't claim that I can continue to smoke because I want smoke. You know, the land use concept of non-conforming use doesn't apply in this case. So we do have some time to look at those details. For example, I had an email, I didn't see the article about Duluth, but I did have an email from the Duluth city attorney. You know, they're looking at various parks, they're looking at their transit stations and other things. So I think, you know, it's a city-by-city evaluation of what are our public assets,
Right.
and which ones of those do we want to ban. And so, you know, that's something staff and I can work on developing and bringing back an ordinance that addresses that, and we can do that within the next couple of meetings. We don't have to do it for the next meeting.
I would appreciate that. I think, does that give you enough
Yes.
clear direction
Yeah.
in terms of that? Okay, great discussion. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, the list here is good, but I am not in favor of doing sidewalks and streets and parking lots. I think those are more very public, but more locations when I think about banning is more a park where kids are present. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. So since you mentioned that, I would like to see that list, whatever you come up with for us to look at. So that answers my question for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Kate.
And just quick on that, I think that's a great, because I can't come up with everything right now, but I think that's a
Yeah.
great discussion so we can get more in depth with things that we're going to say yes and no to.
And then we
Yeah,
can
here's a-
actually visualize, because when you think about parking lots, do we want smoking marijuana in the Hy-Vee parking lot? Do we want that in our city parking lot?
Yeah.
I mean, those are some of the questions, but I think we need to see the list so that we can really think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, council members, we are going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back to have our regular city council meeting. Thank you for the good discussion tonight. I know this is a challenging subject because it is so large and it has so many moving pieces to it. But thank you for that discussion, council members. And with that, our workshop is adjourned. welcome to the Monday, July 24th, 2023 Maplewood City Council meeting. And council members, I wanted to share some really great information with you that I learned about a week ago on Sunday. I got an email from Ramsey County, and then I followed up that week with a tour of the Recycling and Energy Center. It is the joint Ramsey-Washington Center where we do our recycling and where our food composting is going to be picked up at that particular location. We had a great tour out there, but the email that I received in essence said that, the trial period for the compost pickup where you just drop it into your garbage, we all got those much bigger composting bags. And then there was a trial area in, I believe, South Maplewood. North St. Paul was also a trial spot. Cottage Grove down in Washington County, and then one other city in Washington County. Well, the trials have been going so well that in September or October of this year, all of Maplewood is going to be able to be putting our food compost scraps into those larger green bags, and all we do is put them right into our garbage cans, and then they will go down to the R&E building, and robotic arms will then sense and be able to pick out the green bags, and then the food will be composted. And ultimately, the next steps that they're working on is when we had the workshop, and Commissioner Reinhardt was here, talking about the anaerobic processes to basically eat up the composted food scraps and then ultimately turning it into reusable fuel. Those are the next steps, and they're working on those contracts. But that was great news that, the composting site that we have over here at our community center, we no longer will have to drop off our food compost there because we can just drop it right in our garbage. And it's gone so well, and they are ahead of schedule. And so I thought that was pretty exciting news. I know I stopped over at the compost spot this morning, and there were 2 people dropping by and asking about when are we all going to be able to do it. And I was pleased to be able to tell them September or October, you're going to be able to just put it in your garbage. So I'm sure our communications department will be getting out a lot more information about that. People who are interested, the county will be passing out those large bags, and it will be pretty streamlined to be able to get our food scraps picked up. So it was, if any of you get an opportunity to go down to the Ramsey-Washington Recycling and Energy Center and take a tour, it's pretty amazing to see those robotic arms and how they've been training the robots to pick out those green bags and pick them up and then remove them from garbage. It's a little futuristic, but it's happening, and we're a part of it, so that is really pretty exciting. And there was actually an article about it on the front page of the Pioneer Press in the last week. After this, I went to the celebration event on July 17th, and the paper picked it up and talked about what an exciting thing this is for our city. So that is great news to start tonight. And with that, council members, let's start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I have one question.
Councilmember Juniman.
Does this apply to our multiple dwellings as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Lee,
Present.
Councilmember Villavicencio,
Here.
Councilmember Cave.
Here.
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Mayor Abrams.
I'm here as well. Thank you very much. Council members, moving on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any additions, any discussion? Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick addition about fishing with friends.
Fishing with friends, okay. I'd like to add Harmony Gardens. And Councilmember Juniman.
National Night Out.
National Night Out, thank you. Moving on to a vote, all those in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Let's move on to approval of our minutes. This would be the July 10th, 2023 minutes. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Lee, the motion to approve the July 10th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving on to presentations, we have Assistant City Manager Darrow with us tonight, sitting in for City Manager Coleman.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple updates. First, you have in front of you the 2023 community events, and there's the next event is July 26th. It's the July Celebrate Summer event, and then we're going to be talking about the National Night Out here shortly. As far as workshops, we've got a busy work session on the 14th, where we'll be reviewing the 2024 budget preview. We do have Met Council Purple Line discussion, and as well as a public hearing on the cannabis moratorium on the 14th. On the 28th, we'll be taking a deeper dive into the budget review. There'll be a community listening session at 6:30. And then on September 11th, there'll be Ramsey County Emergency Operations Plan. So folks from Ramsey County will be here. For council comments, we do have the public comment line open. We have not received any messages yet, but we do want the community to know that that line is indeed open, and we'll be providing updates on that line in future communications as well. Last month, last meeting, the council directed staff to look into the EAB issue and grant funding and other options to address EAB issues. And so we'll be communicating back to the council on that. And as well, last meeting, Councilmember Lee directed staff to research issues with regard to continuous lots and zoning. And that process will be a part of our overall city zoning amendment. So look for updates there as well. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you for that. Council presentations. Councilmember Lee, Fishing with Friends.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Public Safety Department. I attended the Fishing with Friends last week. A great event, great turnout. Friends and families and neighbors in our Public Safety Department. It was a great time. All of my kids went. 2 of them caught fish. Actually, one of them did. The other one did not. So he looks forward to this coming year. The comm department put out a really good, quick video about the fishing event too. So if you have not seen it yet, I think the comm department has it out on social media. So do check that out. But just wanted to say thanks to the Public Safety Department chief. It was a great event, great turnout. And my son said those are the best hot dogs he's had this year. I said I could do them at home too. He's like, no, it's different, Dad. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Council members, I attended I guess it was a grand opening of Harmony Gardens over on Hazelwood and County Road C. And, we all drove by and watched it go up, just basically in the shadow of our brand new fire department over there. But I was really amazed when I took a tour at how large the campus is. They are prepared for every stage of living, from independent living, assisted living, memory care, and then hospice care. And they've only been open just a very short time, and some of those departments are already at full capacity, which was pretty impressive. It's a very beautiful campus, and they had a really nice open event for the community. I attended it, and it's really a very wonderful asset in our community. So that was really fun at Harmony Gardens. Councilmember Juniman, National Night Out.
Okay, this is it, the last warning. National Night Out is a week from tomorrow night. It's August 1st. Hopefully you are aware of a party in your neighborhood. Chief, is it too late to sign up for a party?
Madam Mayor, Council, we have till the 26th to sign up. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we had 49 signed up. I think it's probably 9 or 10 short of what we had last year, but I think we'll get some last minute. So we're reaching out to those last year that haven't signed up yet and trying to get them to sign up, but they have till this Thursday.
Okay,
So 2 more days.
Two more days to sign up for a party in your neighborhood. Please do it. It's a wonderful occasion. Neighbors are always amazed at what a fun thing it is to get together. It's just, they need a reason. Okay, National Night Out is a reason.
And what that means is summer it's already, I hate to say it, but it'll be August 1st, council members, which means we're pretty much.
Stop it.
Yeah, we won't go there. We don't need to talk about that. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. But council members, just a reminder that staff will be putting out a map once the registration for National Night Out events closes. They'll put out a map that will be available to council members so that, I certainly try to get to at least 6, 7, sometimes 8. But it really depends on the timing, and I will just encourage staff or council members to try to go to as many as you can, recognizing that don't spend a whole lot of time driving in your car or trying to get in between spaces, because you waste a lot of time, and it really, some of them only run from 6 to 8. Some of them start earlier, some of them start at 5. So it's all on the map and the registration that council will get once we close registration. So look for that coming up later on this week.
And let's
So,
hope it's not 95 degrees.
yes,
That cuts down on,
let's hope that it's not that warm next week, but we'll see. We'll all be out, and it'll be a good time. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda, we have 4 items. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I motion consent agenda items number G 1 through 4.
second.
Cave, seconded by Juniman, consent agenda items G 1 through 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have no public hearings tonight. We have unfinished business. We have a resolution awarding the sale of GO improvement bonds, Series 2023A. And so let's see. Mr. Rube, this is your time.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On June 12th of this year, Council authorized the issuance of improvement bonds to finance the Myrtle Sterling area improvements. Today was the the sale happened this morning. The issuance was originally for over $2 million. It came in under $2 million, which is great. In front of you, I handed out prior to the meeting the sale date report that our consultant with Ellis, Bruce Kimmel, will go over with you, as well as a revised resolution, both a red line copy and the final copy for your review. Tonight, Council will be asked to adopt the resolution awarding the sale of general obligation improvement bonds in the amount of $1,945,000. And with that, Mayor, may Mr. Kimmel come up to present.
Good evening, Mr. Kimmel, and welcome to the council meeting.
Thank you, Mary, City Council members. Bruce Kimmel with Ellers, and it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'll just go through a few details on the sale day report. And once again, I'm happy to be here with great results on the city's behalf. You did very well in the market today. So with that, just go through the competitive sale results. We received 10 bids on the city's behalf today. It was really quite extraordinary. With a relatively small issuance of this size. Oh, thank you. I was told to click it on, and I failed to remember that. So, Madam Mayor and council members, we received 10 bids on the city's behalf today. You can see those on the bid tabulation that begins on the second page of the report. It looks like this. You can see that TD Securities out of New York was the winning bidder with a true interest rate of 3.35%. The actual yields, you can see if you go back a little bit to the left, ranged from 3.05% up to 3.56%. But you might notice that the rates were all at 5 and 4%. So you may recall from previous bond issues when there's this disparity between the face value coupons or rates and then the actual yields. That's what happens when the winning bidder presents a premium bid for your bonds. Now, we knew exactly how much the city needed for the street improvements, so we were able to take that premium that they bid and use that to reduce the bond amount. That's why, even though we went out to market with $2,125,000, you can see the final amount is for this $1,945,000. So we're generating more than that in actual construction proceeds and paying for all the cost of issuance with that additional premium that the winning bid had. I'll also just note, I won't go through all of the bids, but you can see that the second place bid from Baird came in at 3.36%, actually, and that's rounding up, so you can see exactly how aggressive the bidding was to win these bonds, and that, as usual, is to the city's benefit. Any questions about the bids that we received from TD Securities all the way down to Bernardi out of Chicago?
I have to say, it's very competitive.
There continues to be a lack of supply to meet all the demand in the market, and so that's why you see these firms from all over the country bidding on, again, what is a relatively small bond issue for Maplewood, because you're very highly rated, you're well-known in the market, but there's also this inherent lack of supply currently. So that benefits the city and the taxpayers.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Just a few other results. I noted the restructured size, so that's what will be in the resolution before you. I did also want to just touch briefly, I won't go through the debt schedules in any detail unless you'd like me to, but I did want to touch on the credit rating because that's always a high point. And I wanted to note that, Mayor, as you mentioned, this was Finance Director Rube's first time as the man large and in charge of this rating process, and he continued the great legacy left behind by Ellie Paulseth in terms of the level of preparation and expertise throughout the rating process. It makes my life easy, and it actually makes the rating analyst's life very easy too. She said verbatim, "I love rating the city of Maplewood." Because of all the detail that you provide, and there's no questions that she has to even think of. I think the call maybe went 20 minutes, maybe 25, and that was with us adding some color commentary about all the great things that are happening in the city economically and with development and so on. So this whole process went very smoothly. The affirmation of the city's AA+ rating went very smoothly. As you know, that's just one notch off of the very highest rating you can have of AAA. And you continue to work your way towards that as your economy grows, as your demographic numbers continue to strengthen, and as you've stated, you look to decrease the amount of bonding you have on different indices over time, and they recognize that and are right on board with that as well. So it may not be tomorrow or anytime in the very near future, but we think you are on track. You're really doing everything you can to work towards that AAA rating, and that would be a great feather in your cap. But AA+ is also extremely good for Maplewood. Are there any questions about the credit rating or any of the things that go into that?
I don't see any lights on.
Okay.
It's a great report.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. It was a pleasure working with you and your team. And I'll just invite you to take up the award resolution awarding the bonds to TD Securities. Thank you.
Councilmember Cave.
I just had a question. In the motion, it gives a dollar amount of $2,125,000. So are we changing that in the motion to 109?
Kimmel.
Mayor and Councilmember Cave, yes. You would
Okay.
want to change that to the final amount of $1,945,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmembers, would someone like to make that motion?
And with that, I'll motion to adopt the resolution awarding the sale of general obligation improvement bonds, Series 2023A, in the original aggregate principal amount of $1,945,000, fixing their form and specifications, directing their execution and delivery, and providing for their payment.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? I'd like to ask Mr. Kimmel, do we need to put in there that it is for TD Securities? Would you recommend that?
Mayor, you can, but it's not necessary.
Okay, great.
Everything
Then we
is implicit in the resolution itself.
Got it.
Great.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Cool. And I will make sure that I sign this proposal form, and I'll give it to Mr. Rube. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have some new business. We no longer need our own catalytic converter ordinance. Chief Beardeman, this is your topic.
I believe it's Ron's, correct?
Sure, Madam Mayor, Council, I can take it. The staff report's very quick. Remember what we did last December? Forget it, we're repealing it. There was, last year, there is a statute dealing with catalytic converters. The problem that we had was that the penalty provision in the statute really applied to scrap metal dealers and other people in the auto business, didn't apply to the folks that we're concerned about, the people who are stealing these things on the street. I think it was probably a drafting error in the statute. And so what we did last year, along with a number of other cities, was plug that hole by having our own ordinance that imposed a penalty on the people that the chief is trying to catch. The legislature paid attention. They fixed the statute this year, so that's no longer necessary. And in fact, there's a preemption provision in there which probably now kicks in. So we don't need this. In fact, we probably can't have it, so we're simply repealing it.
Great, glad to hear that. Councilmember Lee, do you have a question?
Yes, a question for the chief, actually. Love Maplewood for being a leader in this and putting this in play in December, but I'm curious to see, interested in the data. How did this help the department at all in any way? How much was it used? Can you share that with the council?
Sure. So I looked at that a little bit before knowing that might be a question. I guess as far as this ordinance is, I wouldn't measure success by how many tickets we wrote. We did not write any tickets under this ordinance. I really viewed this when we drafted it, as well as to the point now where we're undrafting it, but as a deterrence. So people were aware. It's hard to measure that, but if we stop 4 or 5, 10 victims from being victimized, I think it was worth the effort of doing it. So to answer your question, we did not write any citations for it. They're very difficult to catch, but really it was a deterrence, and I think it probably had some impact.
And council members, just I don't believe that you were on the council at the time, but part of the problem was that there was no inclination that the legislature would actually fix it. And so we would have to maybe wait for a whole other round of the legislature. And given the number of catalytic converter thefts, the council decided we wanted to be proactive and we wanted that deterrent out there. And so I'm glad that the state took action, but we had no guarantees that they were ever going to do that. So
Sounds familiar.
good. So
I
council
move-
members, would someone like to make the motion?
I move to adopt an ordinance repealing Section 24-60 of the Maplewood City Code pertaining to the sale, purchase, or possession of catalytic converters.
Second.
Moved by Ginnivan, seconded by Lee, the motion to adopt an ordinance repealing Section 24-60 of the Maplewood City Code pertaining to the sale, purchase, or possession of catalytic converters. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes, and so we have repealed that. And council members, we have gone through our agenda tonight. So I want to thank all of you for a good meeting. And we are adjourned.